There's a fundamental analysis that we all go through when we want the customer, our direct licensee, to be able to use my stuff. So let's say I own a program. I built a software program and I'm going to license it to my licensee and they can include it in their product and then sell to others. So I'm licensing it to my licensee, and then my licensee essentially needs the right to let others use it as well. There's two main approaches that people use for that. And again, the way to keep this in mind is you're tracking the IP. So either I license to my licensee and give them a right to sublicense because I control the authority, I'm in charge of my rights. And here I'm letting you not only use it, but also grant others rights. That's the sublicense. So I can grant my licensee sublicense and then see further grant sublicenses down their chain. Okay. So that's one model. There's a privity there. And we see the license jump from the licensor to the licensee to the sublicensee, but it stops at the licensee. The other model we use is skipping with a EULA. And under a typical end user license agreement model, that licensor or me, whichever my hand or me, they grant the license, but they grant it to these future users and customers of their licensee. So instead of having the license stop at the licensee, grant licensee the right to grant to the third party or their customers, it skips over the middleman and I license directly to the end user customers. Now, these are the two models. Which one should you use? It really depends. It's got to depend. I use both interchangeably, and it's not that one's better than the other. It just allocates risk differently. I use the sublicensing model in particular when my customer has deep pockets. If I'm going to license my software program to Apple, and then Apple is going to grant rights to its customers. Well, I feel pretty good that if something goes wrong and Apple screws up or their customers screw up, I can go after Apple and they'll have money to pay my damages that I suffer. So that's one factor. Another factor is, do I want privity with the end user? Because when I license to the middleman and then they sublicense, typically there's no privity between me and the end user. We don't have a contract together. So I have to rely on that middleman to enforce my rights. Now you can do that in your contract. It's not that hard. You just put in all the language and all the obligations, maybe even some backup rights if they fail to do it. But you're at a little bit of risk because you've lost control of your IP. You've basically, it's like I think a lot of analogies I use for IP are cars and rentals, because it's kind of like a car rental and a car sale and borrowing a car is kind of like IP. So the first model where it's a sublicense, I let my son use my car and I tell him he can let his friends use the car too. So I don't have a relationship with the friends. I don't talk to them. I don't deal with them. They're relying on my son saying you can use the car. I don't know what he told them. I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know if he's going to make them pay, I don't know anything. But I know I can count. My son has liability for whatever their customers are doing if the contract says that. So that's one model. The other model is I give my son a piece of paper that says, if you use my car, friend of my son, you have these rules. You can't drive at night. You have to fill it up with gas. So that's how I think of EULA versus sublicensing. And so as you look at the risk scenario for this situation, you're really looking at what's the best way to manage that risk and what you want to do. And is it better to have privity with your end use customers because you want to be able to sue them if they do something wrong? Or is it better to be able to count on your middleman, your licensee, to manage kind of the risk down the chain? And again, you can add indemnities, you can add all these other things to it. But the decision whether to do EULA route or sublicense route is so dependent on risk, the parties, how closely you want to control your IP, how important it is. what kind of IP it is. If it's a patented product, I'm not as worried because anybody infringes, I go after them. But if it's a trade secret, you risk losing the trade secret because once it gets out and they don't follow the rules as well, you're kind of screwed.